direction. There we go. All right. So welcome everyone. I want to introduce Tanja Pressinger to you if you have not met her before. She is a wealthy wise woman. She's been part of our group for a while. And you see her in Signal, I am sure. So, because she's very active there. So, Tanja, I'm going to pass it on to you. Rebecca is joining right now. So give her 2 seconds to come in and then we can get started. And you should have access to the share. So go ahead and do that if you want. And there we go. It's all yours. Hi, Rebecca.
Good morning.
Hi, Rebecca.
Thank you,
Hi there.
Susan. Hi, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
So I will just give you access to the slide deck I've prepared. And let me just know whether you can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm changing into presentation mode. Okay.
That's great.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Susan, for the suggestion to have me here and to be able to share around the, let's say, slightly esoteric side of the property cycle, on which I've been working for the last 2 years nearly. I've worked a lot with Christine Skinner, who is a financial astrologer in London. And of course, I've worked with the book by Akhil Patel, The Secret Wealth Advantage, which you probably all know, I guess, and with the material from Property Share Economics from Phil Anderson. Well, it's the service of Phil Anderson and Akhil Patel. So what I suggest that we look at, so that's my suggested agenda, which Susan has already shared previously, that first we look at the McWhirter business cycle, which basically is the foundation of the property cycle. Then that we look in a second step at the lunar node signs. First, I will explain what the lunar node is about, if you haven't heard about it, because it's not common knowledge. And then what it has to do with the stock market, which is basically what we are interested in. Then we look at the winner's curse position, which is a very specific point in time where the property cycle might have an important milestone. I will explain that afterwards, what it is. And the fourth step, we will look at the Mercury retrogrades in 2025. Because you might remember when the topic of volatility in crypto came up in December in Signal, I gave an answer like it helps if you know about the Mercury retrogrades, because I've shared that in my mastermind group on cyclical investing. And that's where I had suggested that I could also share this knowledge with you. And then we decided to do it beginning of January to have a broader view on 2025. So that was the background. And then what will enhance the house buying mania from my perspective in 2025, that's the planet Jupiter moving into Cancer. Is that kind of what you feel is interesting for your investing, if you have some background around the property cycle? Yeah, okay. In case, I don't know whether you've seen the videos by Phil Anderson and Akhil Patel from the London event. They have covered some of the astrology topics there. And they had an astrologer called Olga Morales. Maybe you've seen the video. Olga Morales, she's really spot on, but it was a very dense video. So what I try to do is, in several steps, really explain and not using too much jargon and extra words. Whenever there's anything you don't understand, please ask. Okay? So I will go step by step, and after every step, I check whether it was useful knowledge and whether you have questions. So let's look at the McWhirter business cycle. I don't know whether you've seen that before. It looks like a wheel, And the wheel has the zodiac in a backward position. Like you start up here with Leo, then you go into, then you go backwards. You have Gemini here, you have Taurus here. If you're, you might recognize the signs. This one is Pisces, this one is Aquarius. So what's that wheel about? The cycle is the basis for the property cycle. It runs around 18.6 years, roughly 1.5 years in every sign of the zodiac, which you see here around. And at the same time here, you get an idea of what's the, when prices are up, when prices are down, and we are like here in between, in a transition period from Aries to Pisces. Where does the name McWhirter come from? You might have heard already from a trader named W.D. Gann, which Phil Anderson refers to quite often.
Yes.
He was doing a lot of calculations and a lot of prognosis and predictions. And W.D. Gann, in the first half of the 20th century, basically he was using a lot of numerology and astrology, but back at the time, astrology was not legal in the US. So he found ways in his books to not mention the word astrology. He was also always referring to the Bible, like the 7 days in the Bible and number 3 in the Bible and things like that. And he had an assistant called Louise McWhirter, and the description was that it was her who had invented such a cycle, but usually the guess is it was Gann himself. So based on the cycle, it was used, it's also used by the property cycle experts, Phil Anderson and Akhil Patel, in order to give you an idea of what the trend in the stock market will be like within the property cycle. So what does the astrology stuff have to do with the property cycle? Before I explain all the signs here, I have some basic explanations around all of that. First of all, that we have a look at what's basically
Tanja?
the lunar about.
Tanya, we got some
Sorry?
people coming in. We've got people coming in. So why don't you just hold
Yeah.
up for a minute? We'll get them in.
Yeah.
You can do a really, since we're still kind of at the beginning, do a really brief recap maybe and get them caught up. This is, I
Yeah.
think, the last of the people I expect. Sybil might come much later, but I'm not really expecting her. I think she's still in Germany.
Okay, so I will just briefly go back to the agenda
Regina, Tina, are
to
you
get
guys with
everyone
us?
on the same line.
Okay. Yeah. Regina, Tina, welcome. We're going to give you a brief recap of what we just reviewed.
Okay,
just so
thank you.
you can get caught up. Okay.
Okay. Welcome both. So we have just started like 2 minutes ago, so you haven't missed a lot. I was just explaining that I wanted to give you a background on the, let's call it esoteric astrology side of the property cycle. And I would like to proceed in 5 steps to make it like understandable without using too much bizarre words and things like that. So first of all, I'd like to explain the McWhirter business cycle, which you'll see in a second what it is. Then about the lunar node. First of all, what is the lunar node and what's the impact on the stock market? Then when we have the exact Venus curse position, which is a very specific constellation, like a point in time, a milestone, which is very important for the climax of the cycle. Then in a 4th step, we will be looking at the Mercury retrogrades in 2025. You might remember that in the signal group, I had mentioned that in December, when there's a lot of volatility in Bitcoin and when you get the impression it doesn't get along, then you should look at what the Mercury retrogrades are about. And that's why I have added this to the list. And as a last step, about a point in time which might enhance even the house buying mania in 2025, which is also about property cycle, because we will have the planet Jupiter going into Cancer. I will explain later on what that means. So I hope like the plan is okay for you. I will do my best to give you really advice you can use for investing so that you get a bigger picture, a background, and then you have an understanding which might help your decisions.
Thank you.
And where did I get the background from? I've been learning with Christine Skinner, a financial astrologer in London, for the last 2 years. And I'm using the book, The Secret Wealth Advantage by Akhil Patel, which you probably know as well. And I'm also subscribed to the Property Share Economics, which is the service by Akhil Patel and Phil Anderson. So the McWhirter business cycle. So this looks like a very strange wheel, where you have like descriptions, prices up, prices down, transition period, then node trend, normal. So in a first step, it will probably be difficult to understand what's going on here. And then you have the numbers starting at 1 here, going back to 12 here. If you look at the outer wheel here, we have some astrology signs. For those of you who have already seen a horoscope, you might recognize. You have like here Sagittarius with the arrow. You have Libra here, up here. You have Cancer here. You have Taurus here. And what this cycle is modeling is basically the reverse of the zodiac, like it's going back the zodiac, and it's looking at the so-called lunar node. I will explain in a minute what it is about. This cycle is basically the basis for the property cycle. It's an 18.6 year cycle, which you can use both for collective energies and also for your own personal transformation if you know how to do it. And you have signs changing roughly every 1.5 years. If for the stock market, you know when you have the changes and what it means, then this can be helpful to understand certain things going on. So in the first step, and what I've listed here, you certainly all know this book, Akhil Patel, The Secret Wealth Advantage. If you want to look into the lunar node from a personal transformation perspective, this is the book, like the Bible for this topic. It's called Astrology for the Soul. It's a book which has been published, I think, 20 years ago or so, but you can still buy it if you're interested in it. I've done a lot of coaching and personal transformation based on it for myself. So first of all, what's this lunar node about? So the lunar node is not a planet like other planets such as Sun or Mars or the Moon. The so-called Moon's nodes, they are the points of intersection between the Sun's orbital path around the Earth and the Moon's orbital path around the Earth, which means they are just points which are opposing each other, but which are like an indication for a certain collective energy, which I will explain on the next slide. You don't need to remember this. It's just to give you an idea, a picture, and you don't need to know this by heart. It just gives you an indication, like you have these strange headphone symbols here, which is the so-called southern lunar node and the northern lunar node. And if you see them in your own horoscope, it's like an axis. Usually it's the southern node, it's where you come from, and the northern node where you go to, which means you can use it as a development axis in a personal horoscope. So now the big question is, what does that mean for the stock market and the property cycle? That's what we are most interested in from an investment perspective. So as we've seen, the lunar node changes sign every 1.5 years. It governs the Mercury business cycle and it moves backwards through the zodiac. So we had Aries now as a sign of the lunar node, and now we're going into Pisces on Sunday in 2 days. The lunar node axis represents, as I mentioned, a collective energy. This means even if people are not conscious of this energy, it is around. So it has a certain impact on emotions and actions. As you know, trading decisions usually are not 100% rational. And you can explain certain preferences for certain sectors with changes in the lunar node. I give you an example here. The lunar node we have at the moment, which is about to change, is in Aries and Libra. That's the two opposing signs. It went there in July 2023. If you go back to the stock market in 2023, you will see that starting July 2023, there was an increased interest in home building stocks. Libra is associated with real estate. So home building stocks back then were seen as a safe haven. They went up quite considerably in some cases. Whereas the other end of the lunar axis, Aries, it drove technology and artificial intelligence. And for artificial intelligence, we got another supporter with Jupiter in Gemini starting in mid-2024. And Aries also can lead to war and conflicts, which we see a lot at the moment, like in different regions in the world. And for the change into Pisces on Sunday, we will see on Monday what are the sectors which get attention then. Do you have questions? I know it's a very, very abstract topic. I try to really break it down step by step what it means. If you've never heard of the lunar node, I understand it might sound very far-fetched, complicated, esoteric and everything.
I find it very interesting. This is very cool.
Thank you.
So I do have a question. So when Libra equals real estate, is that because there is some sort of broader reason that Libra relates to real estate, home, building, that kind of thing? Or was it when we went into that, that's what we saw was happening, and that's how we made that connection?
That's a very good question. Before July 2023, Christine Skinner already gave a hint like that Libra might help home building and real estate. It's a sign which is, normally Libra is a sign which is associated with beauty and diplomacy, and also in a certain way, security. And security is having your own house, basically. And that's probably the association with Libra. Whereas for Aries, it's easier. Aries is the god of war. So, and technology is kind of, well, let's call it a modern warfare. And artificial intelligence is kind of understandable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's disruptive. So it would, it's sort of, war we associate with negative things, but disruption generally can come in, it's good and bad. So like all things. So that in mind, if we're looking into Pisces, what's the opposite? And Virgo. So Pisces is water. What do we have any idea? Like, what would we think is something that we would expect? What are the other indicators around those two?
Well, around Pisces, there are different possibilities. On the next slide, I gave an
Oh,
idea.
okay. Okay, I'll let you just go. Sorry about that.
The one what I didn't put here on Aries Libra is the title of Akhil Patel's book on this section, which is The Long Cycle of Prosperity and War. And war is Aries. No? So here you have a kind of link. So I've tried to give you some background here, and in this, so you see the lunar node sign here, like rather the lunar node signs, like the axis, because it's always two of them. Then you have a kind of, what does it mean for the sectors, and what's the meaning within the property cycle? And I'm sorry, I've mixed these up. It was not so easy to map everything to chapters in the book of Akhil. And then I've looked up in the astrology tables to see when does it happen, because that's the most important information for us from an investor perspective. So we had the lunar node signs in Taurus and Scorpio until June 2023. And Taurus is about home building, stability, building, and luxury goods. If you look at like the handbag company in France, LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, they gained quite a lot during that time. And then if you look at their performance in 2024, second half of year, doesn't seem so interesting anymore. Also, the other luxury companies, you can look at the stocks, and they were way less interesting in 2024 compared to 2023.
Yeah, they had all-time highs in 23. It was amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Then,
so can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The slides that you have that you're showing, are they going to be something that we can print to see it, to have it, and then try to figure out if we get the book? I'm not sure exactly what everything means. I do believe in the astrology thing, and this is a lot different than normal because it has to do with finances. But like, do you think it's a good time? Is this saying here right now, home building luxury goods until June of 23? Well, we know that's over, but right now, is it a good time to buy, or is it not so much?
Well, if you look at the book from Akhil Patel, he's very clear on when you buy anything related to luxury goods and collectibles. And if I'm not mistaken, when we are going into the mania, he suggests rather selling collectibles and the like. But I think because if you look at the book, you have these, at the end of every chapter, you have a 2-page recommendation box, like what you should sell, what you should keep, and what you should buy. And as we are now going into the mania part, Pisces Virgo for this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, let me just check. I think in the mania part, it's not about, let me just check in the book. It's about, what are the stocks? Be selective with property investing. Continue to hold stocks most closely linked to overheating real estate markets and investment mania, then get ready to sell. Buy commodities, including gold and silver. That's for the mania. So I think you have to be careful around what is still, and do not purchase any more alternative assets such as collectibles. That's what I was referring to. That's on page 196 of the book, referring to the mania part of the cycle. So I think.
So are you gonna? Yeah, that's gonna be. We can get a copy. We can get that book. You're gonna publish that somewhere. You're gonna.
The book is done by another fellow who Tanja and I follow, who have a whole program of their own, all about investing. They're in Australia. Well, one's in England and one's in Australia, and they work as a pair. So we can talk more about the book and what's in the book. We've talked a lot about it in the past, We talk about it in this class, in this session, kind of frequently. So, so we can talk about it again, Regina, and get you more detail about that. This is a little different in the fact that this is sort of their underlying thought process. The book
Yeah.
is not astrology. The book
Yeah.
is about finance and how
Right.
to look at today's cycle. And
Right.
and
So are we going to be
Tanja
able
is
to print this stuff?
You can
This
buy
stuff
the
you
book.
have? Are we going to?
you can buy, everybody can buy the book. You can buy the book. It's not ours, it's just available. And I can get you information for where you can buy the book, the title, and it's out on Amazon.
Okay.
Okay.
And these little slides, that we can print these slides, you're going to have a place where we can, she's kind of got a synopsis of
Well,
what she thinks.
let's finish going through this, and then you can, Tanja, you can let us know at the end. So, but
Yeah.
this is Tanya's work out of her own group, and so we'll look at that, and yeah. So I'll let you go back to that, Tanja.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I strongly recommend that you get the book and you read it as soon as you got time to read it, because it has very essential information if you're investing for the next 2 years. It's really very important. Okay, so what I've tried to do is for all the signs, I have tried to match the chapters in the book, which means with Pisces Virgo, we are clearly going into the chapter called the mania. The mania is characterized by, like, everyone goes into stocks and goes into risk, like even your taxi driver or your hairdresser or whoever who has never touched stocks before. It might be crypto as well at the moment, like everybody running into crypto. From the data I've seen, it's not yet the case. Like we are not yet in there. And then the second chapter, which probably starts with Pisces and Virgo, is the Great Delusion, meaning running towards the top of the cycle. Now, from a date and time perspective, and I think that's very important for us as investors, the Pisces Virgo slot 1.5 years is running from January 12th, which is in 2 days, until August 2026, which is a little bit more than 1.5 years. But January 2026 should be very clear in your calendar that ahead of August 2026, you should really get out of risk position or look at what you want to do in 2026, and then have this August date, probably already May, June, in your planning. Yeah. So what I've done here below is for Aquarius, Leo, and Capricorn, Cancer, which are the next ones, I've put in also the dates of the last cycle, which give you a hint of when it gets really dangerous. Because the next one, the Aquarius one, was January 28 until August 29. And that was very clearly the financial crisis. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which means it started, so Pisces Virgo was until January 28, 28, which means it already started in 27, I think. So there is like a transition within this time slot towards a more dangerous part for investing. Let's call it that way. Susan and I share a professional experience as a project manager. So if you do a project plan for your investments for this year and next year, then next year, second half of next year, 2026, would certainly be in a red area where you have to do a lot of risk management, or clearly define ahead, like in the first half of the year, what are you going to do, or already have a very close look in 2025, second half of 2025, what are the assets you are interested in, and what is the risk management you can do. That's basically the key information, what you see here. We are in the mania and in the great delusion phase. If you haven't read the book, I strongly recommend, because when you read these 2 chapters, you will know what I'm talking about, especially the mania chapter. You can also get it on Kindle. It's chapter 11, and then you only have to read 20 pages. That's the shortcut to have the information, basically. So what I put in here with a question mark for Pisces Virgo is biotech. I'm not 100% sure, but it might. Pisces is usually associated with pharma, sin stocks, and it might be biotech. We will see how it goes, whether starting February this becomes interesting. I mean, usually if there is a mania, meaning everyone is pouring money into the stock market, and we have a risk of situation when I just saw the numbers which came out, which are rather positive for the market in the US. I think we could have the start into the mania next week. That's a possibility. We'll see how it goes next year. Then the next 2 ones are the ones where we closely need to pay attention, because they can be really dangerous if you're heavily invested. So after August 2026 until March 2028, and then we have to count 1.5 years, these will be probably rather rough times for investing. Meaning if you are prepared, if you're well prepared of what will be coming and what are the stocks to own, what are the safe havens, then you can benefit from it. And if you don't know about it, then it's not ideal, basically. But I'm sure that Susan has already explained you that after 2026, it can get rough. Yep. Are there any questions around this one?
Let me just make a couple comments, just because these are things we've talked about through the weeks or over the past year. The idea of the mania, biotech generally in this last year skyrockets, but biotech for the most part is like penny stock investing. There are thousands of them. You really need to understand the environment, because what you're betting on is trials on drugs for the most part and on devices. And if you're not in that industry and you don't know which ones are better, which ones are worse, it's like betting on meme coins. So it is a place that you can make a lot of money, but it's really a gambling game if you don't know what you're doing in that space. The other nice thing is, as Tanja commented on in this, as we're moving through this year, that move to the precious metals, that is what we do now. So we need to actually be taking our profits throughout this year and converting into precious metals, which are typically going down in price right now. Right now, though, things are different this cycle in the fact that it's just more volatile. So our FOMO isn't as extreme as I've seen in past cycles. And so people aren't moving money out of gold to put into the stock market, which they've done in past cycles. This time around, gold is going up along with everything else. But when the stock market crashes, when property crashes, gold will really take off. In addition, and whether that's true for Bitcoin, that remains to be seen. This is the first time Bitcoin will get to this stage in the property cycle. So we think it will work like gold, but we won't know until it happens. And so just be aware of that as we go through this last phase and transition going into it. But yeah, I think you're accurate with the dates. I think we're going to see mid-August, mid 2026 is where what Phil was saying in his last couple of letters, that these are all marker dates. I think he was giving out the same node dates in his last newsletter, Tanja, right?
Yep.
Remember, America goes first, 6 months, six
Yeah.
to 8 months later, everybody else follows, which is why you
Yeah.
have this really long stretch. In America, our crash started in 2000, end of 2008, really around the same kind of time. I think it was around the October timeframe, and into 2009, and then continued down into 2010. But in Europe and Australia, it didn't start in 2008. It started later in the 2009 and then carried them down. And it really wasn't until 2011 that we finally were able to say we're about them waiting to recover. So think the same way. We will likely see it coming in 2026. It'll be 2027 that the rest of the world is going to catch up with it. Might be end of 26, so that just makes it later in 27, but it's a 2-year drop. So 26 to 28 with countries coming in at different stages. So I love this chart, Tanja. This is great.
Yeah,
This is great.
Thank you. Yeah, you won't find this anywhere else because Phil Anderson and Akhil Patel, they don't openly explain that they use astrology. They are not astrologers. They work with Olga Morales. And because if they use overviews like this, they won't be credible anymore because they're economists from their background. Yeah. But I found it helpful to really have this very clear, for me, it's a project management perspective, have a very clear idea of what happens when so that you can really prepare. And I know it's two very different words like astrology and investing and then project management, but it can be very helpful.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I continue to the next topic?
Yes.
Or are there any questions?
Yeah.
It's okay?
Yeah.
So now the other question is, when do we have the exact winner's curse position, which is about like the end of the mania, roughly. So this position means that the planet Jupiter is opposing the planet Pluto. Jupiter is about expansion and Pluto is about transformation. If they're opposing each other, the effect is like people go like crazy into money and then into investing, and then it will all explode. That's basically the effect of a winner's curse. It's called a winner's curse because the expression is from roulette, from gambling. Like if someone has won a lot of money in the casino, imagine someone has a huge pile of coins, of money, of whatever form of money ahead of on the table, and then goes into like a final action with the intention, now I will double the money. And then the person takes a lot of risk, and winner's curse means he will lose it all. And that's basically what you have with Jupiter opposing Pluto, that individuals will take tremendously lots of risk, like leverage trades, go into credit for trading, whatever you can imagine, betting the house, betting the farm, whatever. And then that's why I wrote game over. Because that's really the very top of the cycle where it gets really very, very dangerous. And I had a look at the astrology calendar, and the exact opposition of the two planets is on the 5th of July, 2026, like just after the American Independence Day, which is on July 4th. So you have a clear milestone, just one day after the Independence Day in 2026. And then shortly after, we have this lunar node change into Aquarius, which is, as you can see here, the start of the crash, like the summit and the start of the crash, similar to what we had in 2008. So with this, you have like very clear milestones to look at. the mainstream media might tell you something else, like everything is okay, we are out of recession and it's all fine and all the data is fine and whatever, but you will know, be careful, beginning of July 2026 and August 2026 when we get them. Are there any questions on this slide?
No, thank you.
You're welcome. So then the next topic is about Mercury retrograde in 2025. So maybe I should first give you some idea around why I chose Mercury retrograde. Normally in astrology, when you do an analysis for your horoscope, or when you ask an astrologer for what's the perfect time to buy a house, to get married, to whatever, the astrologer might tell you when Mercury is retrograde, you pay attention, not buying large ticket items, not signing contracts. If you're traveling during that time, make sure you have your passports in a double version whatsoever, because there are unexpected events which might happen. So looking at the stock market, Mercury from a general perspective will give you a hint at what's on vogue concerning sentiments or sectors. Like mid of this week, Mercury changed into Capricorn, which means that we will probably have a support for commodities due to that. Capricorn is usually about commodities. When we had Mercury in fire signs like Sagittarius, Leo, or Aries, it's more about technology, because then going into risk is easier if you have Mercury in a fire sign. And usually Mercury has an impact on technology if it goes retrograde. And Bitcoin doesn't like Mercury retrograde from a general perspective. So if you look at the time slots of Mercury retrograde, last time it started in November 22nd and it went until mid-December. If you look at the Bitcoin price during that time frame, November 22nd was like the upper side of the range where it is now bound in. It was not really a lot above 100K, and then it went down again, and then it tested again the 100K, and it went down again. So the range is like between roughly between 90 and 100, which is when Mercury goes retrograde, it gives you an idea what's the upper part of the range. And this will continue until like around beginning of February, because only on February the 8th, Mercury will be, just a second, it will not be back. I have to change that, because the explanation is a different one. Mercury will be ahead of the sun, because that's the shadow. Mercury will be ahead of the sun, meaning it's not behind the sun. It's about velocity in this case. There we go. And a similar situation we will have between mid-March, beginning of April, mid-July until mid-August, because Mercury unfortunately goes retrograde like 3 or 4 times per year. If you know it ahead, then it's easier to prepare yourself for that. I know this sounds extremely weird. What we could do maybe, don't know whether we still have time, look at the chart of Bitcoin and then look at this example, like from November until December, the impact it had.
Yeah, this is really cool. So
Good.
this is where these are the periods we expect it to go sideways. So it'll either go
Yeah.
up or go down, and then it'll fall into one of these periods where it'll go sideways until it makes its next move, which will
Yeah.
be between the April and July. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so this gives you an idea, which also means from again, a planning and project management perspective, only between February the 8th and March 15th, we have this like 5-week time window where Bitcoin can massively go up, because starting mid-March, it might be range bound again. Yeah.
Or it could come down if it does a
Yeah.
correction before it goes up
Yeah.
again. So
Yeah, that's possible
yeah,
as
we'll know
well.
when we get into it.
Okay.
And that was basically my motivation in December to offer this session to you, because it gives you a background. If you see all the volatility and what's going on, you're way more relaxed if you know these are the time windows.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah. Do you have any questions around that?
No, but I'm going to study it more.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And it's not an automatic mechanism.
Sure.
Because Mercury is not the only planet which is having an impact on trading decisions. Yeah, but it
Right.
gives you like already hints. Christine Skinner usually explains, if you want to take a decision, then you need at least 3 or 4 hints going into the same direction before you take them seriously. So this gives you one element, and then you look at all the other elements outside of astrology which might align.
Sure. Does Christine Skinner have a book too? I think you said she did.
It's called The Financial Universe,
Okay.
but it doesn't cover this detail. It's more about the broader situation, because she also predicted the financial crisis, for example.
Okay.
She's more around about the larger picture, and in her monthly sessions, she goes more into detail. She does a lot into crypto. She does a lot on commodities usually, and on specific stocks. If the pupils send her stocks ahead, so that she can look into the horoscopes and then give some idea.
Okay.
What she did in her sessions on the cryptos, one of her favorite is Ethereum, so she usually does Ethereum analysis. She did Ripple, she did Cardano, she did Solana, and of course Bitcoin. Yeah.
You can get her newsletter. Just go out to her website and sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah, I will. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, I would continue to our last topic, which is about the house buying mania in 2025. So the planet Jupiter, which I've mentioned already, Jupiter is about expansion. If you have it if you look at the Jupiter position in your own horoscope, it will give you an idea of where you want to learn, where you want to expand, where you will find fulfillment in your career, in your life, depending on the position where Jupiter is in your chart. And the Jupiter signs usually give you an idea also around sector trends. Like usually Jupiter spends about a year in a sign. When Jupiter was in Taurus, we had that earlier, it helped the luxury goods sector. And Jupiter in Gemini helped the artificial intelligence, because Gemini is about communication. And it's a sign, it's a flexible sign, a very fast sign. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, again, Mercury. So Jupiter in Gemini, which we have at the moment, has helped artificial intelligence, but with a caveat, Jupiter in Gemini at the moment is retrograde. That's why the artificial intelligence topics are like a little bit on the back burner, since I think it started being retrograde beginning of October, and it will go direct beginning of February. So once Jupiter goes active again, it might be an improvement for the artificial intelligence topics, both for stocks and for cryptos who are related to artificial intelligence. So, but now what we want to look at is the next sign Jupiter will go into, and that's Cancer. And that's on the 10th of June, 2025. Now, if you think about the sign of Cancer, it's about family, about having children, about housing. So if Jupiter goes into Cancer, people are ready to buy housing at any price. And that's probably what will drive the property cycle like crazy. And this will also have a very strong focus into security. What Christine Skinner explained, Jupiter in Cancer is about security everywhere. It can be security in homes, like buying homes. It can be cybersecurity. It can be home security, and it can be any kind of security against war, like defense budgets going up and all the like. This is what is a topic for the second half of year. So I've explained here, quest for family home, cocooning might drive price houses to incredible highs, which is in line with the property cycle, which we're expecting during the mania. It's just that Jupiter in this case works like an enhancer of what is already going on in the property cycle, like on steroids, you probably call it in English. The last time Jupiter in Cancer, when we had Jupiter in Cancer was in 2013, which was not really strongly felt because it was the low of the financial crisis, which means people didn't have that much money to spend, then they were rather looking for bargains for houses. But this time, as we are at the end of the cycle, there's plenty of money around. We are obviously in a different situation.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a granddaughter that wants to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
I need to tell her to wait until next year or
No, I think
after.
I think it depends on first on the region and whether she needs to borrow money. Because if you read Akhil Patel, the book The Secret Wealth Advantage, he explains that during the mania phase you have to be very careful around buying property. You really have to look very clearly at what's the property. Will it be like for the next 10, 20 years? And are you able to finance it even if there's a crash in the stock market, things like that?
Yeah.
What might happen is Jupiter in Cancer starting June might drive house prices to even more, they will become even more expensive. So, yeah.
At this point, she's kind of looking. She hasn't made any big decisions. She's got a nice apartment she can stay in.
Mm-hmm.
But she would like a house, and I told her to wait.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're going in.
Yeah, being in real
Go ahead.
estate, I'm seeing that it probably would go up and then it's going to crash in the beginning of the year of next year, which is when I'm going to sell my house after it's gone up. So I want to. I'm thinking about selling it in beginning of 2026, because then you can buy. I think everything will go down, and then you can buy a house cheap.
That's what I was thinking.
And is to hold off for a good year, and then sell it when it's high. In real estate, you want to, sell high, buy low. That's my my goal.
Yep.
Exactly.
This is the 18-year property cycle. So you're buying, this is the year to be selling property, not buying it in 2026.
That's what I thought.
For exactly that reason, right? So yeah.
Well,
and particularly if she has to borrow in mortgages with that, because
she's going to have to borrow.
Loses her job. Right. So if she loses her job for a short time or anything happens, which will happen with the crisis, she'll end up losing it anyway. So there's no point in getting in at this stage. It's way old in the cycle. So, yeah.
So, Tanya, thank you. I got to get out of here before it snows any harder.
Oh,
see y'all.
All the best for you.
Yes, take care of yourself, Rebecca. We're getting accumulation on the ground as we sit here.
Yes.
Shocking. All right. This is really good, Tanya.
Thank you.
Is there more?
Yeah.
Or was that the last one?
No,
you
that
wanted to go
was
through?
it was the last
was it?
slide. I do
Okay.
have some backup slides in case there are questions, but that was the last slide.
Well, I'm interested if there's anything, I find it's just fascinating. I definitely want to, I believe in it, and I want to get these books and really study a little bit more about it. But I understand it all. It's because I've always I was one of those ones back in the 60s. I guess you couldn't talk about astrology, or I was just woo.
Well,
Oh, no, it wasn't the 60s. It was the turn of the 20th century when it was all not
when I
allowed
was
to be
growing up,
discussed.
still woo. They still
Yeah.
gave me a hard time.
Oh, really?
Well, the way I usually do use astrology for coaching it's a very different one, because I combine astrology and project management, which means it gives you an idea of what to plan ahead if you go via transits. And I also use it in combination with wealth dynamics by Genius U,
Right.
which can also be very helpful for financial journeys of individuals.
Yeah.
So then you have like information from different perspectives.
Yeah.
Usually it helps coachees to understand their inner team if they know what their planets are about. And it helps them to work on their trading psychology. Like, why am I getting mad if there's a full moon and stuff like that? Because I had requests like that for coaching. Please explain to me why I have fear of missing out when there's a full moon. And then I go into crypto and it's crazy because I buy at high prices. And yeah, that's the kind of requests I had during the last month.
Right.
Or I want to set up a business and go to a different place and leave Switzerland. Is it a good idea to go to this other place? And that's the kind of analysis I had. Yeah. So very practical and not too abstract, I would say.
Yeah, I find it very interesting, and because I don't come from a project manager background at all, but when you set it up like this, it makes total sense to project manage yourself is basically and outline it out. So it's something I'm gonna kind of do also.
So we're going to have the recording of all of this that I'll put into the signal for everybody you can go back and rewatch the video. Tanya, did you want to share the slides with the group? You could probably just put them up into the signal if you want to share the slides, or if you'd rather hold on to them. It's your IP, so you can decide whether you want to share them or not.
I would prefer to send them to you via email and not via the signal.
Signal.
And
okay.
whoever uses them, please don't share them to anyone else.
Right.
Yeah, just keep them to yourself. And caveat, please don't come back to me in 2 years and tell me, Tanya, you said there will be a crash and there wasn't a crash and I lost money or stuff like that.
That's right.
No.
That's right.
But you wouldn't do that, I know. It's just, yeah.
I mean,
usually I try not to give investment advice because I'm not a CFA. I mean, Susan, you know about that.
Everything and your decisions about things and what your feelings are, your intuitions. This just gives you some basic guidelines, I believe, and but nothing is perfect, so you always have to take that into consideration. But I think it gives you a good outline overall.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just another set of dots. We're always looking for those indicators. And so this is just another way to look at where we are and what's going on and try to understand it. Sure. So not any of them, not the financial analysis, crunching analysis works, everybody's got their own way of doing it. It's the looking at all of the different things and looking for where the intersections are. That helps you to sort of narrow it down. Well, if we're getting a lot of different systems sort of pointing in the same general direction, that gives us some perspective. And that's all we're really looking for here. Nothing is, even those dates, they're not set dates. They're
Right.
Yeah,
dates
exactly.
related to the
Mhm.
nodes. They're not
Yeah.
dates related to when the stock market's going to go one direction or the other.
Right.
Those dates are related to the science of what we're talking about, not to the money itself. It's just
Yeah.
how
And
it
I
can
think also when
impact.
you just look, if you know, it's like in real estate, because I've been in real estate for so long, it's observing what's going on around you, observing what's happening. Also, that it can also give you a heads up, because there's always some red flags that people
Yeah.
miss. That if you just be in tuned and observe and you use your intuition, it's like, wait a minute, that's seems to be a one red flag popping up. So that's what I suggest is people do, is like look at the overall and look for, be
Mhm.
observant. I think our biggest problem is we get so stuck in our ways and we don't observe what's going on around us. And it's like being on your phone and not looking up to see left or right. I was
Mhm.
thinking about that the other day. It's like, do people teach people anymore to, when they get up to go across the walk, to look both ways? No, they just
Yeah.
go. And so I think
Right.
you've got to become that person that looks both ways and observes, and you will be better at of making decisions. But nothing is perfect.
Right. Exactly.
And I really
That's a
appreciate it, Tanya. This has been awesome. It really, I think it's extremely helpful, and maybe because I've always been into astrology and these kind of things. So I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
well, I knew it was going to be popular. That's why I wanted to make sure that we did it at a time when people were sort of back from holidays, because it's just hard to do things over the holidays. So thank you. This was perfect. And
You're
we had a great
welcome.
turnout. So it's good. It's excellent.
Ladies, I have to leave you here because our daughter is preparing her final thesis to be printed, and I have to check whether. Yeah.
Good for
No
her.
problem. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you again. I love all your stuff in the Signal, so I appreciate that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope I won't drown you with numbers. As I'm in a portfolio community, I usually share a lot of data because they have the Bloomberg terminal access. And so I'm just copying over whatever could be interesting for this.
And I appreciate it because
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, me too.
Yep. Okay.
Because
Thank you so
I
So
don't actually follow all that stuff. So I kind of count on you to be my wade through it all and show me what's important. Even with the newsletters. It's perfect.
thank you so much.
yeah, you're welcome. All the best for you. Hopefully the weather won't give you too many surprises and you will all be fine. Huh?
Yeah.
Right. You too,
We're-
Have
Tanya.
a great rest of the day. Bye.
Thanks, Tanya. It was
You
nice to see
too.
you.
Thanks, sweetie.
Thank you. Bye.
Let me turn off the recording. Yeah.